Disney parks are all about dazzling guests with inexplicable effects, but for fans of Imagineering, there's only one thing more interesting than a special effect that works, a special effect that doesn't. So today, we've teamed up with Park Lore, a brand new source for in-depth stories from Disney parks and beyond, to explore a lucky 13 special effects that have been broken, malfunctioning, abandoned, or removed. And make sure to stay till the end of the video for a special offer just for the Duck Squad. The Footlight Parade, the great movie ride, Hollywood Studios. Located in the iconic Chinese theater at the end of the Disney MGM Studios Hollywood Boulevard, the great movie ride had all the makings of a timeless masterpiece, as only Disney can create. The slow-moving dark ride through the greatest moments of licensing-accessible Hollywood hits was an epic 22-minute journey into the movies from the golden age to today. However, one of the ride's biggest scenes never really worked as intended. In the first scene, guests would pass through a medley of early movie musicals, all centered around the By a Waterfall scene from Bubsy Berkeley's 1933 film, Footlight Parade. Recreating the film's famous human waterfall was a 5-tier cake of posed synchronized swimmers, each tier rotating counter to the last, as fountains leapt from each level to the one below, just as in the famous scene. Here you can see the short-lived effect in action. However, the heavy rotating mechanism is said to have been a pretty awful pain to keep running, and the addition of water allegedly caused quite a headache, occasionally flooding the ride path and frazzling sensors. The fix? By the park's first anniversary, the rotation and the water were halted. Soon after, a hazy scrim was placed between riders and the scene, with kinetic lighting replacing actual movement, which won't be the last time on our list that Disney trades lights for action. The Chamber of Destiny, Indiana Jones Adventure, Disneyland.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, head of the Walt Disney Company. In an unprecedented move, the Walt Disney Imagineers have brought, piece by piece, this incredible treasure to America. You can now tour the Temple of the Forbidden Eye at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. But first, a warning. If you choose to explore the temple, be aware that some say an evil and treacherous curse hangs over this ancient building. Enter at your own risk, and I'm out of here.
Indiana Jones Adventure isn't just one of Disneyland's anchor attractions. It's one of the most spectacular rides Disney has ever designed. The attraction's lead-up tells the story of the ancient lost god Mara, set to grant any who came to his temple one of 3 supernatural gifts: timeless youth, earthly riches, or visions of the future. In fact, legend says that in the heart of the temple, the ancient Chamber of Destiny presents 3 locked doors, each corresponding to one of Mara's gifts, and each leading to a legendary Hall of Promise beyond which visitors receive their reward, if they can avoid looking into the dark eyes of the ancient god, that is. With the rising action out of the way, the ride's literary climax actually happens in its first scene, when riders turn the corner from the load area and face those 3 locked doors of legend. Each time that guests boarded the rumbling troop transports, they appear to pass through a different door. On your first ride, you may enter the middle door, Earthly Riches. Your second ride may pass through the left door, Visions of the Future. Then the right door, Eternal Youth. And beyond the door, each Hall of Promise would be filled with props, paintings, frescoes, and statues appropriate to the door selected for you. Of course, it was all just a masterful illusion. In reality, the Chamber of Destiny had just one functioning doorway, with 2 false doors on either side of it. The large, funnel-shaped chamber would simply pivot to make it appear that the single functioning door was on the left, right, or middle. The one actual door opens to a single Hall of Promise, with split-second changes in lighting, sound, projection, and scrims, swapping the Hall of Promise to match the gift Mara selected. But about a decade ago, the Chamber of Destiny stopped pivoting. Rumors insist that an earthquake, common in Southern California, fatally damaged the mechanical system that controlled the enormous moving set. The fix? To compensate, Disney turned to a 21st century favorite, projection mapping. Now, the 3 doors are brought to life by projections that can shuffle the order of doors and have clever unlocking animations matching each gift. Unfortunately, guests now always pass through the middle door, even if which gift the middle door leads to appears to change via projection. That at least allows the ride's re-rideability to continue, but firmly squashes any illusion that you're actually passing into a different room or taking a different route. Fans still hope for the return of the effect, and it's true that a working Chamber of Destiny plus the projections would make for a truly awe-inspiring intro. The Night of the Living Dead, the Haunted Mansion, Disneyland. It's often said that the Haunted Mansion is home to 999 happy haunts, and despite the ride's atmospheric introduction and its creepy, abstract first half, eventually, even the most frightened children tend to relax by the time grim, grinning ghosts come out to socialize. The mansion's unique fusion of fright and fun is now seen as one of its greatest strengths, but in the 1980s, designers and executives briefly toyed with the idea that the ride might be getting stale and predictable. Since most classic haunted house dark rides featured shocking jump scares, commonly rattling chains, falling bookcases, sudden loud noises, or the classic car horn startle, in 1985, Disney tested out a new effect that, it was hoped, would add some legitimate tension and unease to the manor. Standing near the endless hallway scene where the other suits of armor are positioned, the so-called Night of the Living Dead was played by a real actor who would literally sneak up to vehicles to elicit screams. The fix? Apparently, the presence of the figure did more harm than good. The Knight would frequently catch guests in, well, unsavory situations. Plus, as the Omnimovers would rotate towards the hallway, the Knight suddenly leaning into the vehicle to frighten riders would frequently become the target of a quick fight-or-flight punch to the head, or a flying purse. Insiders say that each actor playing the Knight was eventually armed with his own ride stop button to slow the Omnimover chain, to return thrown personal items. Altogether, it turned out that guests wanted the Haunted Mansion to be predictable and family-friendly, and injecting actual fear into the ride simply didn't jive. The Missing Mermaids, Pirates of the Caribbean, Magic Kingdom. Since Disneyland's original Pirates of the Caribbean opened in 1967, the Walt Disney Company has been in a continuous cycle of making edits, big and small, to the piratical dark rides in California, Florida, Japan, and France. This has been met with a lot of controversies, especially the edits Disney made to retroactively incorporate elements of their high-earning Pirates of the Caribbean film series into the rides that inspired the films. One such change was the addition of mermaids in the echoing grottos that serve as the ride's introduction in Florida. Actually, the effect was done with a great deal of subtlety, simply adding the eerie songs sung by the mermaids in the film's fourth installment. A mermaid skeleton on the beach and barely discernible projections of the scaled creatures glimmering as if swimming alongside the boats. Occasional splashes of water seemed to indicate that their tails had broken the surface. The fix? Added in 2012, the presence of the mermaids was simply not clear or consistent enough to work the way Disney wanted, and arguably muddled the ride's story and pacing even further. It was officially retired during a 2015 refurbishment, silencing the siren songs. Just this fall, Imagineers finally got around to removing the mermaid skeleton from the beach. The Yeti, Expedition Everest, Animal Kingdom. Easily the most well-known of Disney's not-so-functional effects, the Yeti is perhaps the most talked-about trivia piece in all of Disney's Animal Kingdom. That's because the ancient mountain guardian is so essential in the story of Expedition Everest. More than just being the pivotal creature during the ride's plot, the physical Yeti audio animatronic itself was a major piece of the ride's marketing campaign. Entire Travel Channel specials seem to focus on the mechanics of the enormous 25-foot-tall primate, capable of swinging out 5 feet horizontally and dropping 18 inches to swipe at passing trains, each move requiring aviation levels of thrust. That's what made it so devastating when the Yeti stopped working less than a year after the ride's 2006 opening. Uncharacteristically, a Disney spokesperson confirmed that the complex functions have presented some challenges affecting its operations. The fix? So, since at least late 2006, the Yeti has begun operating in its B mode, which, for this figure, amounts to fans blowing on its fur, while a strobe light flashes to give the illusion of movement. Honestly, it's enough to convince most riders in the fleeting seconds of the lightning-fast encounter. Still, project manager Joe Rohde has time and time again promised to fix the Yeti, and what's another decade at this point? Mickey Walks on Water, Fantasmic. Anyone who's seen Fantasmic at Disneyland or Disney's Hollywood Studios knows that the Nighttime Spectacular is truly among Disney's most awe-inspiring productions. The show has been elevated to the upper echelons of Disney's entertainment and has become somehow timeless and evergreen. It would be hard to select just one chills-inducing moment from the show, but a true climax has to be when Mickey vanquishes the evil dragon Maleficent, either with a sword in Florida or his magic in California. But had things gone as planned, that final face-off between good and evil would have been even more epic. Originally, Imagineers intended for Mickey to show just how powerful his dream was by walking on water, with fountains rising as he stepped into the lagoon as if by magic. In fact, that portion of the show's iconic score is even called Mickey Walks on Water. The fix: the walk on water effect was simply too difficult to get right, and it was eventually abandoned altogether. What's more, rumors insist that Michael Eisner felt that Mickey walking on water would also draw uncomfortable parallels to Jesus, and thought that it was best to withdraw the idea. Croc, Roaring Rapids, Shanghai Disneyland. At Shanghai Disneyland's one-of-a-kind adventure aisle, guests are invited to join the League of Adventurers to tackle the legendary Roaring Rapids. Their mission? Uncover the true origin of the distant roars emanating from behind Mount Abutaku's waterfall. The answer? A massive crocodilian river guardian that the local Arbori people call Croc. Meant to catch the intensity of the face-to-maw encounter with the lava monster aboard Tokyo Disney Sea's Journey to the Center of the Earth, Croc is indeed hiding deep in the mountain, and this massive audio animatronics figure is rigged to slink out of sight as rafts approach, dig its claws into the rock, and launch itself forward, leaping towards guests as its jaws snap. Croc was one of the most highly anticipated features of the Shanghai park when it opened in 2016, so fans abroad were surprised to find that the first videos to surface of the ride showed that creature entirely frozen, a malfunctioning most would expect to trigger the ride's closure until fixed. Though Croc is now working, we hesitate to say it's in its full A mode. Though the crocodile's head and jaws move, its full body motion and its pouncing effect have never been caught on camera. Falling Ceilings, Indiana Jones Adventure, Disneyland. One of the most well-known parts of Disneyland's Indiana Jones Adventure isn't the ride at all. It's the quarter-mile queue that leads to the remote, gigantic show building, built far outside of the park's protective berm. Faced with the challenge of literally transporting guests into the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, designers used the trek through the collapsing ruins as an opportunity to tell a story. Not only does the walk to this ride slowly reveal the story of the lost god Mara and his 3 gifts, it also gets guests used to being the stars of their own adventure by avoiding booby traps. One of those famous booby traps is a room with a spiked ceiling. Luckily, Indiana Jones has already been through and deactivated the deadly traps, in this case, by wedging a bamboo stalk up against the ceiling to keep it from falling. In a fun bit of interactivity, yanking on that bamboo pole would cause the spikes to fall from above and make the ceiling descend to the sound of ancient rocks shifting. Naturally, the effect would halt at just the last second and reset a moment later. The effect was known for working inconsistently, and in recent years seemed to have been simply turned off. It seems that with each annual refurbishment of the ride, designers reset the finicky effect, or at least a version of it, usually without the actual descent of the ceiling. Though rumors insist it's because the lowering ceiling doesn't leave adequate clearance. That sounds like armchair Imagineering. The simpler answer is probably just that the effect was so superfluous to the operations of the already intensive ride, so when it breaks, it tends to stay broken until the next big cleanup. It's not only the falling ceiling in the temple that stopped working, though. On board the ride, when guests first enter the big room before the crumbling face of Mara, their troop transports slammed down an ancient set of stairs and jerked to the left, swaying riders out over the edge of a rocky cliff over the boiling lava pits below. A green beam from Mara's eye strikes the path, with a resulting fiery burst showing the power of Mara's gaze. Then, a second beam hits the ceiling just above riders, but nothing happens. Of course, it used to. To simulate the temple's actual collapse, a massive ice maker was installed in the ceiling, flash creating large ice sheets that would be released in sync with the laser, crumbling towards the pit below, where it would melt and be piped back up to be refrozen. As the story goes, the ice wasn't melting quickly enough, causing the machine to malfunction. Though Imagineer Tony Baxter suggested a simple heating element to quickly melt the backed up ice, executives thought it's simpler to just shut off the effect. After all, the $50 million had plenty to see even without the collapsing ceiling effect. Plenty of Indiana Jones high-tech special effects are known to flicker out for days, weeks, or months at a time. But in its 25 years, surprisingly few of the effects had been officially abandoned like the collapsing ceiling. Murphy, Fantasmic Disneyland. When Fantasmic opened in Disneyland in 1992, that climactic battle between Mickey and Maleficent wasn't quite as cinematic as it is today. That's because, for most of the show's history, the role of the dragon was played by a relatively simple puppet, a puppet head on the end of a cherry picker, and two stick wings of sheer black material with simple lights strung throughout, the same arrangement still used at Disney's Hollywood studios. In 2009, Imagineers constructed a full-body audio animatronic of the dragon to take its place. Standing 45 feet tall and weighing 18,000 pounds, this spectacular fire-breathing creature easily ranked among the best animatronics on Earth. The new dragon, though, ended up being more of a monster than designers had hoped. Its debut was constantly delayed. When it finally made its debut in September 2009, fans expected the wait to be over. But without fail, it failed. Almost every night. The dragon either didn't appear, or if it did, failed to breathe fire, or froze entirely. Fans nicknamed the figure Murphy after the so-called Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Its problems came to a head in August 2010, when during a performance, the dragon literally fell face first. The 18,000-pound audio animatronic was so stuck, it remained in its precarious position into the next day, until it was literally dismantled to get it out of sight. The fix? Fast forward to today, and Murphy rarely misses a show. And for a 9-ton robot with a flamethrower built in, that's pretty impressive. When she does need a night off, the press of a button launches the show's water screens to hide the malfunctioning figure and replace her appearance with an animation created for just that occasion without missing a beat. Decommissioned Dinosaurs. Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom is, by most accounts, a controversial ride. When the park opened, a somewhat different version of the attraction, Countdown to Extinction, was one of only 2 rides at the park, and its only dark ride. An off-roading thrill ride through the last seconds of the Cretaceous, before the cataclysmic extinction event that wiped out most dinosaurs. The ride through time used the same thrilling ride system and layout as Indiana Jones' Adventure, simply populating the ride course as a dark, hellish, steaming jungle of screaming, hissing dinosaurs. But some of those dinosaurs didn't cooperate. While the ride's big baddie, the Carnotaurus, was known to have problems in its second appearance, it's the ride's center point that's most peculiar. After circling a pterodactyl nest, the Time Rover riders are seated in slips down a mudslide and beneath a pterodactyl. That's quite obviously bolted to the ceiling from a metal arm. While this flying pterosaur originally swooped down towards riders, this effect was shut off. Immediately after, the rover would pass underneath leaping, chicken-sized dinosaurs called Compsognathus. Each dino was really a static figure on an articulating arm. As designed, those arms would sweep over the ride path and under downward-directed spotlights, giving the appearance of the creatures hopping over the car. But that effect too was shut off, leaving static, unmoving dinosaurs frozen in a leaping position, simply floating in midair over the vehicle. The fix. The Compsognathus were mercifully removed in a recent refurbishment and replaced by a projection on the wall. But both odd, awkward effects, and other famously frazzled effects, only serve to add to dinosaurs' uneven tone, and unfortunately, uneven quality. Chernabog, World of Color, California Adventure. Part of Disney California Adventure's billion-dollar rebirth was the addition of its own nighttime spectacular, the astounding World of Color. This all-encompassing light show brings dazzling visuals from Disney and Pixar films to life on a massive, continuous 380-foot water screen amid 1,200 choreographed fountains capable of blasting water up to 200 feet high. Every moment of World of Color is a stunning spectacle, but the show did go through some growing pains, including the discontinuation of projection domes that once floated on the bay. However, the biggest lost effect from World of Color is one that never really made it to public showings: a custom 65-foot tall telescoping 9-tier fountain array that you can see here was designed specifically to become a towering, menacing Chernabog. It can be difficult to imagine just how massive this mechanical Chernabog really was, but videos recorded of the show's test and adjust phase can help. Here you can see the Chernabog Tower reigning 65 feet over the lagoon, just to the right of the Golden Zephyr Tower. The fix? By the time the show opened to the public, the Chernabog Tower was sunk. The demons' appearances were swapped to the water screens, and after one of the show's edits, the Fantasia sequence was removed entirely in favor of Pirates of the Caribbean. The Hatbox Ghost, Haunted Mansion, Disneyland. One of the most well-known manufacturing special effects ever is a legendary character created for Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. Before the ride's opening in 1969, one of its 999's happy haunts was a particularly frightening ghoul called the Hatbox Ghost. This creepy, shriveled, bug-eyed specter was designed so that his head would disappear off his shoulders and appear magically in the hat box he held. Of course, the relatively simple effects simply relied on backlights flicking on, then off, to make the head appear in one place and then disappear. Designers tested the effect at Imagineering's offices in Glendale and loved the result, installing the figure in the mansion. But during previews of the ride exclusively for cast members, Imagineers began to second-guess their character. Though the Hatbox Ghost had worked perfectly when tested in isolation at Imagineering, it turned out that the ambient lighting from the scene was enough to spoil the effect.
And evidently when they ran this at WDI or WED at the time, it worked great in a controlled room, but here inside of a ride where guests go by and see it from all different angles, evidently the illusion didn't meet expectations. Plus, it was really kind of grisly.
Before the Haunted Mansion ever opened to the public, the figure was removed. From that moment on, the figure, who'd been seen prominently in concept art and merchandising, became somewhat of a cult icon, remaining an essential part of the Haunted Mansion merchandise and lore for decades, even though he'd never been seen by the public. The Fix. In spring 2015, Disney announced that a new spirit was soon to materialize within the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. The Hatbox Ghost made his second appearance on May 9th, 2015, in a technological 21st century form. A dazzling new take on the effect, the figure is now one of the must-see characters of Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. Meanwhile, he continues to be heavily used in marketing the attraction in Florida, even though he's never been used in the Orlando version of the ride. These abandoned special effects are very interesting, but there's so much more to discover. This is just one countdown you can find on a brand new site for Imagineering fans, Park Lore. It's the place to explore the complete, in-depth stories of the best rides from around the globe, the terrifying true story of alien encounter, the wonders of Journey into Imagination, the never-built Westcott Park. Visit parklore.com to dig in. And if you love what you see, our friends at Park Lore have a special offer for you. Sign up for a silver pass to parklore.com using the discount code FastpassFacts to get a monthly membership for just $5 a month. With a silver pass, you can unlock rare concept art, stream high-quality attraction audio, receive a membership card in the mail, and access dozens of extra features like this one. Park Lore. Discover the stories behind the rides.